Hello, hello. This is Jan. I hope everybody's good. I'm here with an energy update. So, welcome if you're new. Welcome back if you're not new. Thank you for being here. So, I didn't do an update last week because it was just such a crazy week in all sense of the word. And so, here I am today. And let's see what's going on. Well, at least the real question should be what is not going on? Because this energy is so, and I'm looking for the right word to describe what this energy is. Ever since that last eclipse, so many things have changed or started to change or started to shift. It's crazy. At one end of the spectrum of this energy, we feel that everything is going fast, super fast. We don't understand how time can fly by so quickly. And at the other end of that spectrum, we feel like some things are just not changing or moving at all. So, big duality energies that we're in right now. And whenever that happens, it does translate into different things for different people. Perhaps it could be that for you, you're clashing with other people. You're so much in your light that people are reacting strongly to your light by attacking you or by being closed minded with you, closed off, and not listening, not respecting you. Whenever we feel that duality going on, the best thing to do is to try to stay in the middle. Try to stay aligned, try to stay grounded and balanced because you're not going to get through otherwise, or you will, but you're going to lose some feathers. And that's not, what we want. Rest assured, though, that there's always movement, there's always something going on, going up, even though it feels that we may be going down. Because in the past week, a lot of people were feeling like their life was over, especially this weekend. It was so heavy and intense. A lot of people were feeling like, oh my God, my life is over. Well, yes, it is over. But the good news is it's not over the way you think it is over. Your old life is over. The old you is over. You're gone. I mean, this was a huge phase of clearing. And was it in my last video that I mentioned that we need to only keep the doors, the doors that we really need to keep them open and close the other ones? Otherwise, the universe would take care of it on our behalf. This is what's going on. And unfortunately, there is a lot of resistance in the collective energy. There is a lot of resistance on the masculine side, divine masculine side. They have been in resistance for such a long time that they're falling from grace from a very high place. And I'll get into what's going on with the divine masculine. But collectively, this duality is creating what looks like more chaos, what looks like more bad news. If we look at the news, if we look at just what's going on in my part of the world, in Montreal, there's so many things going on, so many people coming up in the news for stuff that they have done. And it's like there's this wave of energy clearing everything out so that people can be aligned with the new energy that Mother Earth, Gaia, is embodying, that the universe wants us to integrate into our lives. This is spiritual ascension at its best. And I know a lot of people have been on that path and they are thinking, is that ever going to end? Because it feels like I'm putting in the work, working, and not seeing anything change. First of all, there are some changes going on. You may not recall how you were a week, a year, or 2 years ago. So I invite you to just reflect on that for a little bit and see how much you've changed and be grateful for that change. But I know that a lot of divine feminine are feeling that way. They're just so tired, so exhausted. They feel like they're pulling the weight for two people. And that's because of what's going on with the divine masculine. Unfortunately for them, like I mentioned, they've been in resistance for so long that they're falling from grace. They're falling from a very high place in their mind, that is, because there's no more space for ego or any kind of energy that resembles ego to be present at this time. It's the universe is really being like very clear in this message. We need to be heart-based in everything that we do. Everything. Even the stuff that we refuse to look at for so long. And I'm mentioning this because that's what happened with the divine masculine. For the longest time, they were pretending not to see either the twin flame connection, their divine feminine. They were in denial. They were denying this connection. They were denying their own hearts. They were denying their own souls. And of course, that can only be temporary. It's not a way to live. To pretend that we don't see something when it's so obviously in your face. But they're now unable to pretend that it's not there any longer. So it's creating all kind of weird situations for them, tower moments, and they don't have the ability to resist that anymore. So for a lot of them, they're like very uncomfortable with what's going on in their lives and what's going on in the world, because obviously the outer world that we live in is a reflection of our inner world. So if they're conflicted inside, can you imagine what that looks like on the outside? They're being like attacked left and right for all kinds of reasons. All kinds of old situations are rising to the surface to be faced, to be released, to be healed, to be transformed into love. So before I continue with the divine masculine, if you resonate with the divine feminine energy, the best thing to do at this point is to release any and all expectation about everything and anything and everything that you know, that you think you know, or that you think you want. Release everything and just stay neutral at that 0 point, in the void. That's where we heal. That's where we transform. And that's where we move up a level or receive messages. If you are pushing through, it's not going to work. You need to be still. Stillness. Until you feel that message or that call that it's time to start moving. So the divine masculine, they're feeling very uncomfortable because they're seeing things in their lives just falling off. And for some of them, it makes sense. They know exactly why this is happening. And they're able to recognize internally. They're not at the level to say it out loud just yet, but it's coming. They're able to say and to recognize internally where they went wrong, where they were in denial, where they were pretending that it's not there, and they're now facing the consequences and dealing with those situations. But of course, like everything else in life, when we wait at the last minute, the pressure is higher or bigger, more present. The workload is bigger because we waited last minute. So they are feeling pretty much out of breath. They're pretty much at the end of their ropes, just trying to figure out what to do next. Because for a lot of them, it is so demanding that they're in the mood of they don't know. And they're like, I don't know. I'm desperate to know what I did to deserve this, to be in that situation. to be having to deal with this or that. And for others, they're just forced to change. They waited long enough. Now the universe has stepped in and they are showing them the way. They are closing those doors and only keeping the ones that are very necessary opened. And it's you walk through that door because there's no other place to go. And this is difficult to deal with because we tend to feel lost whenever that happens, even though some people are aware enough of themselves and their energy to understand that this is for their highest good. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it stings a little to go through a situation where it's uncomfortable. But, when we know in our soul that it's for our highest good, it just makes it easier to go through, kind of, air quotes here. But for those that are forced to change, they're desperate. They're like, what is happening? Why am I losing all of this? Because they're at the stage where they're losing friendship. They're at the stage where they're afraid to lose control. Like they're afraid to let go and be in that empty space for a little bit until, something else happens or shows up. So they tend to, like, they want to control how this is going to go down because this is very typical of the male energy, the masculine energy. But at this time, they're unable to. They either don't have the physical energy to do it, the mental energy to do it, or the clarity to do it. As opposed to before, where they still had some clarity linked to their ego, that for them it was clear, this is the path that I'm on or that I'm going to take, and they were able to do it. And now they can't. It's been blocked because they need to realize internally within them where the real block is. They are dealing with some blockages that may be coming from many different places. For most, it's coming from a past life. For others, it's past life plus recent events. But there is one major block that they are carrying on their hearts, in their energy. And they used to pretend that it wasn't there before. They used to pretend that it didn't exist because their ego was there to kind of like protect them and say, don't care as much for this. Just, put it aside, pretend it's not there. Don't give it too much power. You'll see. And now everything has risen to the surface for them to see and to face, and they have no choice but to face it. And for those that are dealing with the recent events, whatever that is, whenever it happened, few days, years, it's fairly recent. The advice here, or the message here, the channel message that I have when it comes to that is forgiveness. Okay? That's the only way out of a situation to liberate not only yourself, but the other person involved. Forgiveness of the other person, forgiveness of yourself. They haven't reached that level yet, but they're working on it. They're learning. For some of them, they're learning about forgiveness for the first time in their lives. For others, they just don't see how they can forgive. But they know that if they don't forgive, things are not going to be better. I mean, they are at a crossroads, where they need to make a choice, either forgive and forget, or don't forgive, but liberate the other person involved. Stop making the other person the bad guy or the bad girl. It's not about that. It's about consciousness and about awareness. And they are in that really big lesson. It's a huge lesson for them, like a huge one. It's like, and they're losing their point of reference because they're afraid that they're losing everything. They're afraid of the new life. They're afraid of being in that empty space. They're afraid of the new identity that is coming for them. They're afraid of not being able to control the way they used to. And that on its own has to be part of a grieving process for them. How long is that going to take? Who knows? Depends on the person. But for them, it's like a huge shift that they didn't necessarily see coming. And they don't really know how to deal with that. And they think about their divine feminine and they realize how many times they judged her because she was able to, forgive and forget, move on, live out of her heart. And they wonder how she was able to do it. They wish they could, get some help, but they know it has to come from them. And that is a huge first for a lot of divine masculine because they were able to delegate stuff to others without looking back, without wondering or asking themselves, is this okay for me to delegate this to this other person? Now they have to do it on their own. And they're not used to that. They're really not used to that. All the while learning how to truly forgive. Truly, truly, truly forgive. That will bring them out of that frozen state that they were in. They kind of got frozen. Like in the eclipse, the last one we had, just like came in with a huge bang saying, look, buddy, you cannot stay in one place all the time. You're going to fall anyway. So here, I'm going to help you move. And that was very intense for a lot of them. But for others of the divine, in the divine masculine, they're starting to realize that they deserve to be loved. They realize that they deserve to be loved all the while still having that old program that they don't deserve to be loved. Those questions going on, especially over the weekend and in the past 2, 3, 4 days, where the question, how can someone ever love me again, has been on their minds a lot. Some have found their answers and they were able to release this and shift this, and others are still in that state of mind where they don't see their own value because they are, in that phase where they're losing everything. So they feel like shit, like they're not worthy. So let's be there to help them and support them realize that they are worthy of love, they are worthy of themselves, of the reconnection to themselves, because that's the next step for them, is to reconnect to their true divine essence. That involves the spiritual gifts, the memories. Remember at the beginning of your awakening, you most probably had all kinds of memories coming up into your mind. Memories of past lives, memories of Lemuria or Atlantis, memories of happy times, of sad times. And if you weren't into past life stuff, you probably didn't know where it was coming from. The only thing you probably knew at the time is how traumatic it was or how crazy it felt to have these memories come back. You probably didn't know how to deal with them. Now this is happening to the divine masculine, and they are strongly being called into reconnecting with their hearts, their alignment with the universe and the divine. And if you work with the Merkaba cube, you probably had that code or that download. I think it was 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks max, but 2 or 3 weeks ago, you probably had that download You probably didn't know what it meant at the time, and now it probably is more clearer for you that it was a heart activation for the balance of the masculine and feminine energies within everyone on earth. So if you've reached that level where you're pretty much in balance most of your time, that's great. You're probably feeling this energy easier than others. But for other people, like for some divine masculine, they're like traumatized. They can barely function. They have a hard time working. They have a hard time focusing and concentrating when they try to work. Guess what comes up in their mind? Their divine feminine, twin flame connection, or twin flame information. In fact, they're being bombarded by twin flame information and information, spiritual information at large. Energies, past lives, souls, contracts, Akashic records, all that stuff that is related to spirituality. They are being bombarded with that nonstop, and especially those that are twin flames, especially those who didn't want to believe in that concept or thought it was crazy, a crazy concept, or thought that their divine feminine was crazy for believing in that stuff. They now realize that they're a part of this and that there's no way out, but there's only one way, is from, being insensitive to being sensitive. And for some cases, it's from being extremely insensitive to extremely sensitive, like hypersensitive. That's a first for them. I remember for the longest time being judged because I'm hypersensitive. If when looking at my birth chart in astrology, when you look at that, it's just crazy information reflected into my own personality, and it explains all the intensity in my life, that why, not the why, but how I'm so hypersensitive. It's, I feel everything. So feeling in the world like we live in today, for someone who's hypersensitive, is not an easy task, especially when you're a twin flame. It's like, double the work kind of stuff. And a lot of divine feminine, masculine, didn't believe in that. And they were just judging their feminine, thinking, well, stop being so sensitive. Now they are that sensitive. All those memories coming back are making them more sensitive to energies, to people's emotions, to the unified field, to what's going on in the world. And it's making them realize, hey, we're all related to one another. I kind of always knew this, but I not on that level. Like I can, you know, there's this moment of clarity coming for them where it's as if everything is going to fall into alignment for them for the moment of a feeling of vision, because they're going to have to do the work. They're going to have a message to download, this moment of clarity where everything is going to make sense. Everything is going to be explained to them, or like the plan is going to be delivered to them. So it's going to make sense. It's going to be clear. And then bang, they're going to be taken back to do the work, because that's always how it works. We're always being shown the full divine potential of things, and then we're taken back to do the work. That's for us to know the path. That's for us to know what we're working for. And it's always like that. Even on pure physical stuff. Let's say you're being treated for an injury. Just watch what happens when you get out of a physical treatment, either a physiotherapist or a massage therapist. You know how when you get out of a treatment, you feel like so good, liberated, and the next day you're like, oh my God, my body is hurting everywhere. You were shown the potential, the highest, brightest divine potential, and then you're being taken back to do the work so that you can integrate it physically. It's the same thing as saying as above, so below. like it's there above, but you need to integrate it physically, so below. So that's what they're going through, and that's a lot of changes for them. That's why so many people are unable to sleep properly or tired, extremely tired. That's why a lot of people are sensitive, are purging, or even sensitive to the point where they start crying out of the blue. For those that are aware of that, you can feel it coming kind of before it happens. And you're most of the time being shown why you're crying or feeling so sad. And you're most of the time being shown what's the purpose, what's the reason, and you're so that you can shift it and release it completely. So at this time, the divine masculine is pretty much facing all the skeletons in their closets. It's as if, we see this in movies when they move into a house that's been uh, free for years. They take off, the covers off of stuff and it's full of dust. That's what it feels like for them. It's as if they're opening the closets and they're seeing all kinds of like old stuff in there that need to be cleared and released, healed, forgiven. Forgiveness is a huge, 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 huge energy for the masculine. And it will stay like that for a lot of them until they reach that level of unconditional love. Because it does take a little unconditional love to forgive someone, especially when what they did to you was really mean or not acknowledged on their part. It's one thing to forgive someone that doesn't agree with you, but is able to say, I'm sorry if I hurt you. I never meant to hurt you. As opposed to forgiving someone who is not being accountable for their own actions. And the divine feminine was able to do that for most of her stuff in her life. And of course, I say he and she, but I'm not referring to the male female bodies, but the energy. So the divine feminine was able to forgive most of her stuff, even the stuff including her twin flame. She was able to forgive completely and is ready to move on, is ready for something else. And that's what the twin flames are working together. And the other big shift when it comes to that will be Lionsgate, August 8th, because the twin flames are needed on Earth. There's a reason why they incarnated at this time on Earth. There is a reason why you met your twin flame, if you have met your twin flame. And all of this will come to light as we go along in July and August. But in the meantime, the masculine has to do its work, his work, of really clearing the past and just letting the past in the past. To start on a new foot with a new energy, to be prepared for what's coming. So they're facing all these things that they've repressed for so long. And that's difficult. And of course, the divine feminine is feeling and picking up on all of that. So there's dense energies on both sides. There's dense energy, like pretty much all over the world at this time. There's dense energy in everything. And one of my coach that I had about 15 years ago, I was working out with a professional coach, which was also a spiritual coach to me. He was telling me all the time, Jen, remember this. When you're doing everything that you can and you don't seem to see the end of it, this is where you're the most active. When you don't see the end of it, that's because you're doing so much that you don't see the end of it. And before you know it, soon enough, you're going to be shifting out of this energy, and you're going to start seeing the end of it. You're going to start seeing the end of the cycle, the beginning of the next one, and you're going to start seeing those changes. So it's not a time to give up. And he was always backing these wonderful moments of motivation and support with science facts. And he would, pull out training results for an athlete or even my own training results and showing me, like, remember at that time how you were feeling, look at what you were accomplishing physically. And that's how I came to, understand that, first of all, it's totally true. Second of all, it's hard to recognize when it happens, when it shows up in your life, because it just shows up as, oh my God, I'm so tired of this or uncomfortable. But this is where we need the wisdom to just, recenter ourselves and realize that, sure, maybe we're not where we want to be, but we're somewhere, and that counts. Maybe we're not where we want to be, but we're doing something, and that counts. And all we need to do is focus, 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 and focus even more until we reach that goal, until we reach that level, or until we see our manifestation come true. And if you've read anything about Merlin or Thoth, read about what they say on manifestation. Or even Saint Germain. If you've read anything about Saint Germain and the violet flame and his manifestation technique, that's what they all say. You need to focus, focus, focus until you see it come true. So spiritually, what does that mean is you feed your as above with your love, no matter what the outer circumstances are. Because as soon as you feed it with something else that is other than love, well, you're bringing parasites into your manifestation. So if you're feeding your as above with all the love and unconditional love and focus that you have in you, there is no other way but for it to come manifest so below, as above, so below. So this is the perfect time for the divine feminine to be in that state where, even though she doesn't like where she's at, even though she doesn't like what her life looks like at the moment, she needs to continue to feed that manifestation, that goal. She needs to fall in love with whatever is going on right now so that the love can shift everything, because love conquers all. And especially at this time where we are going through what we're going through with this virus thing. So I know a lot of people are tired, exhausted, they have no patience, but it's not a time to give up. It's a time to rise up. It's a time to find it within us, find that strength to get from point A to point B, and to stay balanced. So that's it for now. Thank you for being here. You can follow me on social media at IndigoGirl555 on Instagram, Indigo Girls Readings on Facebook. You can also use my email to reach out to me. at indigogirl555 at gmail.com. And until the next time, stay balanced and be well.